Good morning once again and welcome back. Allow me to welcome you all once more to the Circular Zambia Forum 2025, which, as we have stated before, is an official side event of the World Circular Economy Forum that was just concluded in Brazil. Ladies and gentlemen, allow me to now call upon our next presenter. This is Andrew Ngwenya from Tandem Circular Consulting. He will take us through some of the highlights of a market study that they did on 5 value chains. So we'll be getting more into the nuances of the opportunities for circular economy in Zambia. And just to briefly introduce Andrew, he is a circular economy specialist and agronomist with over 8 years of experience in sustainable agriculture, clean energy, and waste value chains. At Tandem, he leads projects connecting private sector innovation with donor-funded solutions. Andrew, over to you. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Just to give a brief, what I'll be going through today is basically a summary of a circular economy study that was conducted last year by Tandem and was funded by the Ministry of Home Affairs of Finland. And the idea was to try and identify what viable opportunities exist in the circular economy space in Zambia. So without wasting too much of your time, we'll get straight into it. So to begin with, when we look at Zambia's economy, you'll find that it is basically driven by 3 key sectors, and these include services, industry, as well as agriculture. Regardless of Zambia's reliance on mining, which you all know, and we've heard, I think, from the presenters that went before me, and we'll hear still more later in the afternoon. The experts in the mining space will speak more about what opportunities lie in that space. We do have other areas that have remained untapped and unexplored that present multiple opportunities in the circular economy space. And it is for this reason that last year, this study was commissioned, as I've mentioned, by the Embassy of Finland here in Zambia. So it focused on 5 key value chains, and these included the municipal solid waste, biogas, fertilizer, mining, and also looked at textiles. And you will see that the aim as an overall was to establish the opportunities that are available and also encourage investment in the green and circular economies, as well as to facilitate for trade between Zambia and Finland. At the end of the study, quite a significant number of circular economy opportunities were identified, and these are what we'll look at here today that we'll present. And it was shown that combined, all these opportunities that were identified had the potential of increasing Zambia's GDP by 15%. So if you look at the amount of waste that is generated here in Zambia on a year-to-year basis, it's so much. And you find that a lot of it ends up at the dump site in Chunga that we are all too familiar with. Most of the materials that are found there, close to 85%, are valuable materials that if the various players within the space worked really well to recover before they landed at the landfill, could be ways of retaining value, creating employment, and all the benefits that come from a circular economy. So I'll not delve too much into that. As I indicated, this is a summary of a study that was conducted last year. And for those that are interested, you can have access to this study on the Green Tech for CE page, where you can get the full report. And if you still are struggling with that, you can see us during the interactions where we can share that report with you. So moving along, as we present the various opportunities that we have for you today, we understand that for all new things, including the circular economy, cannot operate in a vacuum. To realize the various opportunities, you have to go through working through some of the hurdles which present as barriers or challenges, but within there are opportunities. So this is a summary of some of those things that businesses, entrepreneurs, and various players, would be financiers, funders, etc., would need to be aware of. Again, for a full list of some of these, you'll find them included in the report. One of the biggest things that the study identified while we were focusing on those 5 key value chains is that the circular economy in Zambia is a sort of mechanism that involves integration. It involves collaboration. You remember that in the beginning, I said we're focusing on 5 value chains, and they're shown in that graphic. But these do not operate as singular or individual systems. You find that materials, I think there was a presenter before me that indicated that materials that are operating in these sectors, some of which are byproducts of one system, can be raw materials that are required to feed into another system. And basically, that is the theme of the circular economy. So on the other bigger picture, when you look at the Zambian economy, these different value chains also includes experts from the private and the public sectors. Apart from the materials exchanging between these, there's also collaboration, exchange of ideas, technical expertise that needs to happen to realize the opportunities that we'll look at here today. So I just wanted to state that so that when we look at the opportunities, we have that thinking in mind as well. So the first value chain that we'll look at is the municipal solid waste, which is something that I know all of us here in Lusaka are aware of and are familiar with, because we see waste every day. We see plastic, we see garbage. We know about Chunga. We've had site visits there. And the opportunities we present, again, these are insights that came from the sectors themselves, from the experts. And we'll have a look at them. The first one being separation at source. Separation at source, I think, is the number one opportunity, but it is also quite undeveloped here in Zambia. Just to pause here, how many of us separate our waste at home? Impressive, thank you. How many of us had started to separate, but at some point stopped for one reason or the other? For those that stopped, just one, I would like to hear why you stopped. Yes, sir. Go ahead. Thank you so much. Thank you so much. For those that didn't hear, he said there's no system to support. He would separate, but in the end, they would all be mixed together. Does anyone have any other reason why they stopped along the way? All right, so there's consensus there. So this is a huge opportunity, but from the feedback that came from the market, it was clear, exactly what you've said. The biggest head right now is how do we get more people involved? How do we get businesses? How do we get individuals to separate? There's people that already do that, maybe because of the background, maybe because of the systems or places they came from. But when you come here, there's no supportive structure. So are there incentives that could encourage people? Are there parts that the public and private sector can play? So that was the feedback. It's a huge opportunity, but still remains to figure out how we can get more people involved. And yeah, in the audience, I'm happy to say there are people that are doing this kind of work. For example, Separation at Source is one company that has been doing this for some years. And I saw Ms. Ola outside, we're having a chat. But there are others that are beginning to do that. But in order to realize the opportunities stressed here, we still need a bit more work to try to get everybody involved. Moving on to the second opportunity that was identified, and this is collection and logistics. Perhaps the most common one in Lusaka, because there are so many people that are involved in just collecting the waste. They don't care about what waste they're collecting, as long as they can pick it and take it to the dump site. So this is a huge opportunity, but still remains areas of improvement. In the morning, there were some speakers that were talking about smarter logistics, as well, sharing logistics, improvement in the types of vehicles that transport waste from the household, from the commercial places. Can we improve on the type? Can we have vehicles that are able to collect cardboard or paper alone and not have one that just mixes everything up together? So there's still areas that the sector, the market feels areas of improvement. And on top of that, regardless of the collection that is happening, only a fraction of it is collected. There's still huge amounts that still remain uncollected. So that was one opportunity that was identified. The other opportunity that the market reported back was that there's need for more public-private partnerships to be created in order to address this burden of waste. That presents multiple opportunities here in Zambia. And the other sentiment that was key that came up in this conversation about waste collection as well as logistics, is that new entrants said they do not understand where to go to get licenses. For those that are not familiar, for waste collection in Zambia, there's the zoning system. So you have to be given an area where you collect. So all those things, some of them don't understand. But we did speak to the people involved in the licensing and certification. And for those that do not know, the first place you can start is visit the Ministry of Local Government and Rural Development. And there will be people that will direct you probably to the Lusaka Integrated Solid Waste Management Company. And you find very helpful people there that will take you through that process. Again, I'll refer to the report. We have a whole section that gives step-by-step guidance to new entrants and new businesses on how they can begin that process. I'll move on to the final opportunity that was identified under the first value chain, and that is that of setup of material recovery facilities. In Zambia, I don't think there are large operations that do this, but a material recovery facility is a sort of system that allows for people to recover different streams of waste, separate them before they end up on the landfill, remove everything of value, and find markets for that. So this, from the experts from the public sector and private sector, was agreed is a huge opportunity. And some of the sentiments that came back from the market is that there could be more that can be done at the Chunga dump site, or improvements that could be made to recover a lot of waste. It is no wonder for those that, if you've gone there, you always find people there picking bottles or whatever it is. It's because they've identified there's valuable things in there. So can we do better things? So that presents a huge opportunity. And we also were able during that process to get examples from regional places as well as international places. For example, there are systems that are working really well in Tanzania as well as in Kenya, where private players and public players have come together to set up such facilities that are able to recover close to 90% of valuable materials from waste, and only 10% going to the dump site. So in such a situation, you find that it is easier to manage the 10%, and also it is easier to realize a lot of revenue from the recovered material to help develop and add to the economy. The other things that came out were also that there's available markets in the local space and international space, and we have people in Zambia that are trading on just waste, valuable waste commodities across the border. And doing this, setting up these kind of facilities will unlock other potential, because other streams of waste will be picked up from there and develop markets for those. So these were the main highlights from the municipal solid waste value chain. Moving on to the second one, and this is biogas. I know later in the afternoon we have some experts who will talk about energy, so they will delve deep into this, but I'll run through some of the main highlights that we were able to come up with in the study. So we identified that almost half of all the waste that is generated is organic, and a lot of it has no use. At the moment, most of it ends up still at the dump site, but there's so much potential that could be done to recover these. And when we talk about biogas, it has potential to take advantage of waste, not just from the municipal stream, but also from other streams, including agriculture and livestock production. But there was another opportunity that came from the market as well, is when we look at our municipal sewage waste management systems. These are a potential that is not taken advantage of. If the facilities that we use now to manage our sewage could be updated or improved, they could also capture some of that methane and channeled to generation of gas that could be used for cooking. And with that, that was the main highlights for the biogas value chain. So I'll move on to the third one, which is fertilizer. For fertilizer as well, the focus of this was we're looking at the waste that is available from the municipal stream, also available on the farms. As you can imagine, farms that do animal rearing generate quite a huge amount of waste that has no use at the moment. For farms that produce crop, there's a lot of crop residue that is not being used. A few people are doing some things with it, but the majority of it is either used to graze livestock, or is plowed back into the soil, or it just rots. So we did speak to people that are using, for example, chicken manure. There's a company, Zambian Fertilizers, that have been incorporating chicken manure into their fertilizers, which was quite exciting to find. And that has been selling their farmers that request that particular brand of fertilizer because it works well for certain crops. But there are also other companies that have been doing some of these things, including creating biofertilizer or making compost material. And we have examples in Albida Agriculture as well as EcoBiz. So you can see that with these materials that we think have no value or have no importance, there are people that are creating and developing viable business models. And while doing the study, finding some of these things was quite exciting because it shows that when we talk about circular economy, we do not talk about just being environmentally sustainable, but it's something that could create jobs for people. That's something that it could create revenue and at the overall contribute to the overall economy as well. So these were the main opportunities identified under the fertilizer value chain. I'll move on quickly to the mining value chain. And I'm also excited to hear that we have some people from the mining sector in the audience, and we'll have some more presentation from the mining sector later. So what we'll present is some of the feedback we got from the experts in the space, and we'll hear more later in the afternoon from the experts that will get more into detail. For those who are not aware, the mining space also generates its own kind of waste. And one of the largest opportunities that was identified through this process that came from the market is that of tailings. So the biggest opportunity lies in reprocessing and repurposing some of these tailings. It was interesting to hear from the experts as well, because you will know that Zambia today has a lot of these tailings that are lying around. And there are some few companies, and there's an example in there, Jubilee Metals, that are realizing some value from that. But a lot of it still remains unexplored. And the expert did say that not all tailings are valuable. So there's need to evaluate which streams would be valuable. And at the moment, the EU is supporting works to try and elucidate that. And that will help try to explore more into that. But some of the other opportunities that were identified in the mining space with regards to that is that the materials recovered from there could help to bolster or to support local production of solar panels and batteries. And the government has been investigating setting up of battery plants on the Copper Belt. So some of the exciting conversation are already happening. And I think from the presentation from the World Circular Economy, there was a lady from Colombia who stressed the last point over there. Can the mining sector diversify the minerals they get from their extraction? Most of them normally focus on one sole mineral. But from what we heard from Colombia, they're saying that is a bit of wasteful. Can we target multiple in one extraction? So there was that feedback that came from the market as well, which was exciting to see that we are aligned with our brothers and sisters from Brazil. And then the other big opportunity area that was identified is that of e-waste. And we have a whole section this afternoon. So please come back to listen to that. That will focus on e-waste. Other than that, also the refining of raw copper was identified as a potential opportunity that would retain some of the value, because at the moment, what we take out is just raw copper. So meaning we are losing out. With that, the final sort of opportunity area was the sulfuric acid production. So sulfuric acid is normally a result of the copper mining process. I'm not an expert on this, but that's what we got from the market. So it's a raw material that Zambia generates quite huge amounts of it. And there's also works in progress that are aimed at increasing efficiency so that more of it can be produced. There's opportunity to export that to some of the neighboring countries that have high demand for uptake of sulfuric acid. And those are Tanzania and Congo, for example. But the other opportunity that the expert identified during the process is that this could be channeled to the creation of fertilizer, because it works as an ingredient for fertilizer production. So again, going back to the preamble that we spoke about, the circular economy involves interlinks and intersharing of different raw materials. And with that, these three were the main areas that identified the key opportunity areas for circularity. And lastly, but not the least, the last value chain we looked at was textiles. And for those that know the history of Zambia, at one point, textiles was a robust space in Zambia. We had the Mulungushi textiles, which was vibrant. That is no longer the case now. but there is some opportunities that were identified in the space. And some of them included, for example, textile to textile recycling. So meaning recovering the value from old garments. And we did learn from feedback in the field that this process can be quite complex, but there are some simple processes and low technology that can be used to convert that old garment to as close as possible to cotton and still fetch some value. But I think the exciting one that we came across while conducting that study was a small space of organic cotton production and weaving and spinning, which is happening in isolated areas of the country that we found quite exciting. So compared to normal cotton production, organic farming for cotton is sort of niche. It involves the use of regenerative agriculture practices. It involves the use of non-harmful chemicals. But what we learned is that through tough times like the COVID period, this industry was robust and it wasn't affected because the product they put out on the market fetches a premium and the market is willing to pay a little bit extra than the ordinary cotton. So that came out as quite an exciting space, and there are some players that are beginning to look at that quite seriously. And with that, I think ends the highlights of the main opportunity areas we find. Again, for those that are interested to know more about the details of what we found, because it's difficult to condense so much information into a 20-minute or 30-minute presentation. There's so much more in the report, which you can access on the Green Tech for CE page. And in a week's time, you can also access on the ZAMSEN page as well. So thank you for being attentive.
Thank you, Andrew. So I'm Jan Koivu. I'm the Deputy Head of Mission at the Finnish Embassy, and we've been quite heavily involved in this space for a number of years. Just one observation, first of all. So you mentioned Chunga, and what we found out towards the end of last year, that was actually after this report from, I can't remember if it was from the Municipal Solid Waste Company or was the city council, but more than 60% of everything that gets taken to Chunga is actually organic. So it shouldn't be there in the first place. And that's hence the smell and those conditions. And basically, I mean, this is a question of kind of, every household composting type of thing, because that you can do at home and you don't have to kind of, not all the waste gets mixed. Because I see that problem with different types of plastic, etc. Everything gets put on the same truck. It doesn't make any sense. But then also I think where we are seeing some gaps in terms of what basically the government could do is introduce incentives. Why it makes sense for me to recycle. Is it the kind of the transport costs? Are they too low? Basically, there is no incentive for you to save money because it's not at a high cost in the first place. That is one thing. And then also, of course, I mean, even though circular economy is not just recycling, as we have learned many times this morning, but also sort of, introducing various, I mean, there's good examples in other parts of the world in terms of how certain products, for example, these single-use PET plastic bottles, that there is a sort of premium on them, that you take it back to the shop and you get money back. And these sort of incentives are missing in many parts of the world, but they are working in some parts of the world. And we would, encourage that any sort of, let's say, advocacy towards the governments as well is to also not just introduce the stick, but also to introduce the carrot. I think that's the way to go. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Thank you, Andrew, for your presentation. And my question is around just maybe taking it a step further to understand these opportunities from a cost perspective. If it's highlighted in the report, I think maybe you could touch on it in your answer just a little bit, because I've taken note to download this report and read it at length. But I wanted to understand very specific to the organic fertilizer. From the last time, I think I explored this option of getting organic fertilizer. Just like you mentioned, it's like a premium product and it can sometimes be quite expensive. And I'm imagining how we are speaking of opportunities, I want to believe for all. So then how was it explored maybe in this study that it's something that is accessible for as many people and not just as a premium product? And if things have changed, I think maybe you could also just share some insights on that. But I just wanted to understand a little bit more this opportunity and who this opportunity is for. Thank you.
Thank you. That's a great question. So when conducting the study, we did reach out to players in the space, experts in the fertilizer space, also people that have been working with biofertilizers, that have been doing composting. And you are right. In order for it to compete with the chemical fertilizers, first of all, for them, it's a business as well. So it needs to make economic sense. It has to generate profit. So probably that's what drives it to being a premium product as well. So one of the viable feedback options that we received, as opposed to having one large facility, because remember the raw material is waste itself. So in order to make the price a bit more competitive, some of the feedback we got was that instead of building those sort of centralized facilities, instead you do decentralized facilities. So those are smaller, they're cheaper, and then they're positioned strategically at the locations where the waste is generated. So, for example, I could indicate maybe you have a facility where there's 60% of organic waste that Jan spoke about, or think of farm setups. There are certain large commercial farms that generate a lot of this waste. So if you have a facility there, the raw material is already there, so it cuts down on transport costs and all other costs that involves logistics. So when you produce a product, it's fairly competitive in allowing a lot more of the end users to access that. But yeah, in the report, we do give some information on the pricing on some of the equipment. You can have a look at that. But yeah, it's still something we will continue to work with, because remember, we're competing with chemical fertilizers that have been there prior independence. So there's that sort of background to include.
Hello, my name is Jetty. I just wanted to expand on the question to do with, I think, organic cotton. I used to work on a project run by United States African Development Foundation, and we had a number of organic projects. For example, there was organic cotton, organic paprika. So it's more expensive to actually do the farming, but you see it's a cost-benefit analysis. We're able to get EU certification, or they had organic certification, and they were able to, the cooperatives were able to export into the EU. If you look at the price in the region to the EU market, there's a big premium on it. So it means, yes, you spend more. It's like you spend 2x more, but you're getting 4x more on your price. So the net effect is that there's actually financial gain. So you need to be, strategic, especially on organic certification. Then I think I wanted to add something to, I think what the Finnish embassy talked about. Right, I think he came up with very good ideas. Now, for us to benefit from those, it would help if right now the government is doing the budget cycle for next year. If a credible organization puts in a budget submission, I think the budget submissions are being taken now. Those incentives he talked about can actually be considered. Of course, when you write a budget submission in your individual name, it will get thrown in the bin. But if it depends on what name is on the letterhead, then they'll listen to it. But I think those are very good ideas. And unfortunately, the ministries are not so proactive, so it's up to organizations, projects, the donors to make those submissions, and then they start introducing them in the policy, because once it goes in the budget, it becomes a policy measure. Thank you.
Thank you so much.
Hannah Mwanza from Data for Change. Thank you so much for the brilliant report. I really enjoyed reading it, because you managed to actually put a lot of numbers and great visualizations to the problem that we have seen right now. And I believe what we've heard from the insights from the Brazilian event is the importance of traceability and transparency in the whole process, because the questions of the waste management facilities have come up, and what the report also manages to put numbers to that, and maybe you can share a bit about that. How did you get to those numbers? And if we speak about bringing investment in those facilities to Africa, how much, what makes the difference in those prices, and what will be good for Zambia? And how do we, speaking about blended finance, how do we de-risk those investments successfully? What we are trying to do, not just because we love research, is We are doing a study right now with Ebusaka, one of the examples that was also highlighted in the report, and Muyunda is probably also in this room right now. So that's basically the Uber for waste. And we believe that using this not only as solution to the problem now, but using the data created as a byproduct more efficiently to avoid that waste uses its value but continues being value before it gets to the dump site. So it's about blended finance and de-risking the investment. Maybe you can share about the costing of those facilities. Thank you.
All right, sure. Thank you so much. In the interest of time, I know she's looking at me. I can chat with you even during our breaks. We can go through that. I'm happy to do that and loop in my colleagues as well. But thank you.
Let me also state that there will be a panel in the afternoon after lunch looking at financing. We'll be talking about de-risking some of these investments. So that's one to look out for. But really, just to thank Andrew for taking us through some of the economic opportunities. If you are in the private sector, he's done a fantastic job of highlighting where the economic opportunities are. So if you're looking to start or even expand, I think Andrew has really shown us where the economic gains can be derived from.